Hello walkers, we're at Funchal Madeira. We're going to be talking about the Vagrant, and this was the Beatles boat, very famous. It was here over 30 years and it sat right in front of us. I'm going to show you exactly where. And it was a big deal. If you're a Beatles fan, you had to come and see it. Stay tuned. So, it's worth talking about the Beatles, isn't it? They were in the 60s. They were the biggest band in the world. No matter what music you're into, I bet you, they had a real impact. This is exactly where it was. And we visited it ourselves, actually probably more than one occasion. And just in front of us here. So, picture, we got the little police boat in front of us now. You'd have had the Beatles boat there. So it was white. It was white and it had light blue stripes. And picture this, basically, when it was built, it was one of the top 10 luxury yachts in the world. And then over to the right hand side of it, what you'd have had, all this is filled in by the way, but it's made to look like it was still a marina. And so you had little rowing boats, I know, connected by little wooden walkways. And basically you could step onto one of the rowing boats and there was a table and chair on there and there was a little shade over your head. So yes, it was outdoor dining. Very nice. And then over to the left, over here somewhere. So you had a little bit ground here, and then there was a round glass building, which I think must have been a panoramic restaurant. I never went in it myself, or at least I don't remember if I did. Now, what was it like inside? So I did mention, of course, it was probably, when it was built, one of the most luxury yachts in the world. It was really nice inside, lots of polished wood, lots of gold paint on all the portholes, and of course they were trading on the Beatles, okay, memorabilia, so there were loads and loads of pictures of the Beatles. It wasn't quite so luxurious on the outside, but the waitresses, they all dressed in white uniforms, little sort of nautical uniforms. So it's built in 1941 and it was Horace Vanderbilt. He didn't build it himself, by the way, because he's filthy rich. So 1942, so basically a year later, the US Navy said, joining World War II, we'd like your boat, please. And so they commandeered it, and they used it through the war as a patrol boat. And I think also then, sort of in the later years, as a training vessel. Now, at the end of the war, 1st of September 45, got given back to the original family. Now the thing is though, and the thing is why there's a little bit of a mystery about this boat, is there's not a lot of paperwork for it after that time. No, I know. So basically it sort of disappeared off the shipping register. In 1977, apparently under the Beatles' ownership, it came a cropper in Gran Canaria, ran up on the beach and got stuck there. So the question is then, how did it end up in Madeira and why is it famous here? Well, so it basically got stranded, Gran Canaria, got stranded there for pretty much 2 years. And there's a Madeiran businessman, João Faria, who basically came across it and said, it'd be quite nice, get this going again, bring this back to Madeira, because apparently it was from Madeira that the Beatles originally bought it, or so the story goes. So it's kind of like, well, let's bring it home. And so he got it afloat and he brought it back. And he spent a lot of money. He converted it into a bar and restaurant. He had it set down here in the ground. So when you came up to it, it looked like it's in water, but it isn't, doesn't bob around. It's actually solid. And then it was opened. So he opened it in 1984, I think, so it's only a couple of years later. And everyone was really pleased because it really sort of rejuvenated part of the seafront here. The Madeiran president awarded him a gold award for tourism, said, thank you, sir. And there it stayed, being very popular, being very, very prominent on the seafront here for nearly 30 years. However, February 2010, there was a massive storm down here and did loads of damage. And it really kind of wrecked some of the seafront along here. And so the because the town planners said, you know what, we need to really fix this up, we need to renovate, we need to make good. Fortunately, Faria didn't want to budge, he didn't want to sell, he didn't want to move his boat, which is kind of in the way, really. And they tried for years to get him to move and wasn't really having it. Anyway, finally, in June 2013, after basically a year in which he hadn't been paying his rent, the police jumped on board and they looked for anything valuable they could sell to pay off his debts. And I suppose it's quite sad really, because at the time too it became apparent that the staff that were working here hadn't been paid for a very long time. In fact, when the police came in and opened everything up, all their belongings were still in the lockers. And 8 a.m. on the 28th of April 2013, it was dug out of the harbour, because again here, as I said, it wasn't actually floating on water. They had its hull strengthened because it'd been sitting there for nearly 30 years, so had to make it seaworthy. And they tugged it out to sea and to take it off to Canaria, okay, where it was going to be dry docked. Now on the way, if we can find a bit of footage, I'll show you, its mast collapsed, but it stayed attached. And despite all the freaky weather, it did manage to get to Canaria in one piece. That's not the end of the story. It was in December that same year, there was a massive storm in Canaria and 25 ships were sunk. The Vagrant was one of them. And you know what? It's still there somewhere, down there in the murky waters. So anyway, here we are. We've come to the end of our walk. If you find yourself in Madeira, in fact we've got little pocket guides of Funchal which we've put together with lots of love and care. We'll leave a link on the screen in front of you. But for now, we're going to leave you with a picture of some boats and the sound of my luscious British voice lulling you to sleep. Take care. Hope to see you on the next one.